Content warning, y'all. We have lots of fun making this podcast, but remember, we watch a lot of R-rated films, use language that reflects that, and joke about heavy topics to create levity around these themes. If that doesn't feel safe or could be triggering, please take care of yourself. We want you to have fun listening too. This also means we might not be suitable for children. Oh yeah, and we spoil the end of all the movies we pod about. Thanks for listening.
Second annual Doc-Oc-Shock-Rocktober. Hollerween. Stream along Spook-a-thon.
Unclear if it's possessive or a contraction.
Okay. Sorry. I saw a hair floating. I got worried.
Take your time.
What the fuck? That movie was a film that was made. I honestly,
Wish
could
it had
never-
been subtitled.
I promise you, I never in a million years would or could have guessed anything about that movie.
Right?
Even though I'd seen that subway scene or whatever the fuck it is.
Yep.
And nope. Nah,
Still not prepared.
nope. Nothing about
I've seen
it.
the whole damn movie before, and
I like the part where the private investigator
this
goes
is the
into
part
her
where I
room
lost my shit.
and or goes into her apartment building, or I don't know what the fuck ever, the abandoned fucking place she was at, and she is going crazy, and then he goes into the bathroom and he's like, "What is that?" And you were like, "And this is where the movie gets weird." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Because up until then,
Straight ahead, fucking rom-com. Regular Mrs. Doubtfire.
I love how she's like very clearly exhibiting signs of psychosis, and he's just like, "Hey, do you want to have coffee? You want to sit down quietly and have coffee together?" I think I figured out your problem. She's like literally trying to get like bugs out of her skin, and he's like, "Hey, you know what I think it is? I think you just need time. You know, you just need some time, and then you'll come back to me." This is not what was actually happening. I'm just making fun of it. Like, when he's washing his face and she's, like, putting their kids' clothes in the fridge. And he's like, "You know, I think when you're there, you miss being here. When you're here, you miss being there." And it was cool. It was cool. So wild. It was interesting though. I really liked I liked a lot of the absurd. I mean, obviously I like the absurdity of it because of course. But I liked there's so many like long shots in this.
Uh-huh.
Or like seemingly long shots where they're just like following someone doing something fucking weird, and I really enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah.
And also I really like the sparseness of a lot of things, you know?
Yes.
That way if there was mess or clutter, it felt completely
significant.
Yeah, like totally out of the ordinary. So that was super interesting. Also the fact that like this was something that I thought was interesting, like how often the bed was switching from being clean to being filthy, like in the same scene. Like it would be clean.
Which bed?
Like her bed. with the green sheets.
Yeah.
And it was like, you'd see it and it'd be fine. And then like you'd go into another room and you'd come back and it'd just be like covered in something. And you're like, what the fuck? How did that happen?
Yes.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Also, what I really enjoy is like, what the fuck? No one knows. Who
Well,
the
someone
fuck?
is certain they do know.
Well, oh yeah, for sure. I one of the trivias that I read was like critics, like many critics,
Yeah.
like refute any sort of like realism involved in her fucking that creature in the bed
Yeah,
or whatever.
I
and I'm
mean,
like, okay, get over yourself.
Before we go too much further,
Sorry, we're gonna spoil it.
we always do, part of the opening to this fucking show is that it's going to have spoilers. But
Oh yeah, I spoil
I promise you, the less you know about this film
Yeah.
going in, the better.
But
I mean, it's going to be a wild goddamn ride anyway,
Yeah.
probably. But do yourself a favor and don't do any research.
No.
If you have any inkling.
If you're like, I want to, no, don't do that. Our dear friend and avid listener, Randall,
Yeah.
enjoys, I think, and
Shout out.
Randall, correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, you know he will.
He like looks up as much information about what he's going to watch. I think, I mean, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's like, it's not like for me, I want to know nothing going in, not for a lack of spoilers though. It's not because I'm afraid of something getting spoiled for me, or I'm afraid of like I wish I know. It's not like that at all. It's that I want to have no idea what the fuck I'm about to watch, so that it's like a completely clean slate. Like I don't want to watch trailers. I don't want to watch nothing. I don't want anything.
It's a fine line, right? Because you got to take care of yourself.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And especially with something, that is considered horror or
It's just, I do want to say this. It's fascinating to me that he does this. Like I'm so yeah.
because
Feel free to
you don't
text me, Randall.
you don't relate to it at all.
Well, it's just something that I don't do. And anytime it's like
Well, that's what I
somebody,
mean.
yeah. Well, I mean, not that I don't relate to it, because sometimes there are things like I'm sort of the opposite about television. Like if there is a TV show, like if it's a movie, I don't want to know anything. I don't want to hear anything. I don't want anything at all. I don't want to know.
Not say anything.
Yeah. If it's a TV show, once the ending has been spoiled for me, I'm like, that sounds interesting. Maybe I'll watch that. I don't know why. Like, you could spoil the entire, series of a television show for me. And I'd be like, you know what? I think I'm going to give that a watch. And I don't know why. Like, it doesn't... TV series, completely different. It's a completely different connection for me. I will actively look for the spoiler of the end of a season of a TV show sometimes, and then decide from that spoiler if it's actually worth investing my time. I think because a TV show you put more time into than a movie.
Yeah, and it's going to be a different
it's going to be a different
lengthier journey.
Correct. Yeah.
Different kind.
Right.
And lengthier.
And I don't do the weekly thing.
Meaning?
Like with TV show, like I wait until it's over and then I binge it.
Oh, I see.
I don't do the thing where I'm like, I'm gonna stay tuned every week. That's okay. I'm good.
Yeah, you wonder how you ever live that way now that there's an option not to.
I mean, rewatching Profiler, I'll tell you how I did it. I did not have any friends in real life.
Well, sure.
And so waiting that week was like waiting for my friends to come visit me. What is that? MASH? Oh.
Because the lyrics, as I've told you before, the great part about it is in the film.
Mm-hmm.
The song, it's an actual song that somebody sings in the film.
Mm-hmm.
that then becomes a theme song just instrumentally for the series is "Suicide is Painless." Suicide is painless. It brings on many changes, and I can take or leave it if I please.
Good
Doo-doo-doo.
Lord. Wow. I feel like I have to sneeze.
You don't? That's just a lie. You're.
Were you gaslighting me, Keith?
I could think of it more as lampshading. Gas shading. Lamp lighting.
Gash shading. I thought you were saying gash hating. I was like, that's so gross. But I get it.
The joke I was making is that your story made me want to commit suicide. I was trying to be subtle about it, but that doesn't fly anymore. You gotta spell shit out for you.
Yeah. I somehow I don't get subtle. You'll be surprised to know the person that believes they have autism doesn't understand subtlety. Hey, you said you didn't want to breathe into the mic anymore. Stop doing that.
I'm an outlaw. Because the other day when I said, please help me to not breathe into the microphone, and you said, honestly, I'm going to tell you this. You're an outlaw when it comes to that microphone.
It's true.
I can't tell you shit.
because the amount of times
I said fair enough.
I don't want to be a dick. I don't want to be an asshole. I don't want to be like, hey. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you're doing the thing. And so I just let you fly with it. But the amount of times I look over there and you're like, I remembered that I think.
Meanwhile, every time I edit an episode, I'm so annoyed because I'll split our 2 tracks, separately. And yours, if it's a waveform, it's like there's more. If the wave is the dark space, there's more dark space than light, and mine is the inverse. And I'm like, I can't hear me.
Yeah.
Ironical.
That's what I just said. That you put the mic away from you.
And what I said was I was agreeing with you. Fuck! It's weird. I can't do subtle.
Whenever Keith will make this face where he's it always works on me. He just I don't even know how to describe it. It's one where you're like I'll just side eye me.
It's like a little side eye, yeah.
And it just looks so pissed off, but it's funny because that's not actually how he looks when he's mad about anything. So that's what makes it so funny is that I don't think he's actually mad at me because as pissed as he's able to make himself look, it doesn't look like when you're actually mad about something. So it's so fucking funny that because I know you're doing a bit just for me.
I'm glad.
You're such the only tragedy about this podcast, the only tragedy, is that your face,
That is the only tragedy about so many things.
Your face. No one gets to see the things you do with it so much. But yeah, okay, so this movie came out. This movie has like a cast of 3 people. Yeah. I mean, a couple more, but Sam Neill and the girl, and then the kid.
Isabella.
I don't know how to say that.
I don't either, but I'm gonna guess. I gotta remember how it's spelled.
I was gonna say I can't even remember. I know there's some consonants in there and some vowels.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Her dad was. Algerian, so I don't know how to pronounce that J.
Mm.
I'm gonna go with Adiani.
Adiani? Okay.
But yeah, all bets are off because that name is her dad's name, who was Berber, Algerian Berber, who, yeah, laugh at that. Fucking racist. Her mom was fucking Bavarian, and she grew up in France. So,
Whoa.
forget about him.
Let me just say, C.
See?
Yeah, and Margrethe Karstensen plays Margie.
Mm-hmm.
Heinrich is played by Heinz Bennett.
So amazing. What was
He was like 60.
He's hot.
He's hot as
That
fuck.
dude's hot. He had such an Anthony Hopkins vibe to him, though.
Okay.
That's all.
You say though, was that like a drawback for you?
No.
Or
No, just like that was something I like kept thinking. Like he'd make a certain face and I'd be like, "Oh man, I see so much of the Hopkins in there."
The kid was played by Michael Hogben. This is apparently his only credit. Go
Wild.
That's my favorite thing about child actors. And they're like,
yeah,
no thanks.
actually.
no thanks. Yeah, I saw quotes from both Sam Neill and Isabella. Wait, is it Isabella or Isabel?
Isabel?
Isabel. Like the quote from her was like, I don't know, these are both in the trivia.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Hers was an actual quote. I think the Sam Neill thing was a paraphrase, but hers was like, yeah, the kind of movies this guy makes you can only do when you're young,
yeah.
Because I was battered and bruised inside and out after. There was no broken bones, but I did ask myself, why did I do that or something like that. And Sam Neill said something very similar. He said, I barely got out with my sanity.
Yeah. Well, that one I think was actually a quote. There was another one that he did that said it was like his favorite of all films that he's ever done. That one wasn't in quotes, but the other one was.
Right.
Yeah,
You're right.
I saw this interesting thing though that was talking about it because like I saw one thing that was like, oh, it was about like making like having the ideal partner, like creating the ideal partner or whatever. And I was like, nah, I don't care. But another one was talking about, you probably read it. It was talking about how it was like, I found this one actually interesting where it was like talking about it in the sense of it being, like heavier than just like a romantic relationship, but like like there's like, they're so close to the wall.
Right.
And it was shot in Berlin. And it was, like all this stuff that was like a dichotomy of like old and new and
yeah, there's
all
lots
this
of
stuff. There was so many
pairs.
things that was
There's
like,
lots of
right, yeah.
duality kind
right.
of stuff.
And I like that idea of like the duality as opposed to like, oh, it's a relationship. Like, because I feel like, yeah, of course it's about a relationship because that's literally what it's about. But like the idea that it's like talking about like, like the parallels of like he, like he leaves his job to be with his family and she leaves her family to be, and it's just like all of these things where there's like so much duality happening, they're on like, they're so close to like the wall, but like her place is like old and tattered and his place is like new and modern, right? Yeah. I don't know. I was like, what's the word? And I don't know. I thought that was really interesting. I was like, oh, that's such an interesting way to look at it. And I think that makes the complexities of it so much stronger.
Yeah.
Like it makes it more
Right.
complex for me because then it's like it's not it's not like a straightforward, like the things that happen, the destruction that happens is deeper than, because I think it's a little bit, I mean, no offense, but when something's just like, oh, it's about like the relationship between like men and women, and you're like,
Yeah.
but like if it's like, yes, but as a deeper, like that's like the part of it that's the most relatable, but there's deeper conflicts within. That's so much more interesting to me.
Yes, and I think this is where, oh man, I don't know where to start.
I believe in you.
Thanks so much. One, yes, I think what led me to this movie is seeing it as like it being called atmospheric horror, which was
Right, yeah.
When, it was
I fucking
that was a
love
new
that shit.
term to me.
Yeah.
Like on my journey of
Mm-hmm.
exploring horror and genre film, and that would have been why I watched it.
Yeah.
Around the same time I watched
Mm-hmm.
Don't Look Now,
Mm-hmm.
because that
And I think you
has
might
a
have
very
watched...
similar tone, or not tone, but like the environment is definitely, it's like what everybody says they love about folk horror is
Yeah.
like how the setting is its own character, or
Mhm.
like, and like both of those are like urban, but like, and I don't think I have no idea what West Berlin was like in 1980 when this
Right.
shit was shot, but like, I mean, it's a definite presence, right? Like, there's a lot of exterior shots, and they're shot very intentionally. Like it's not just this is what happens to be in the background.
Right.
or
Right,
whatever.
right.
You
Yeah,
see
yeah,
all this graffiti.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, and that really caught my eye a lot. Like I was
Yes,
looking at the
right.
graffiti a lot, and because some of it's not in English and some of it is.
I
And
mean,
just
most
seeing,
of it's in German, seemingly.
yeah, and like, but like, just seeing it, I don't know. It was just like, yeah, I don't know what half of this is saying, but like,
Right.
it still like feels important to the scene somehow. Like if like this
Right.
feels like if I knew what it said, I'd be like, oh,
It's part of the text, right? Like,
Right,
I mean,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
literally text, but I mean, that's like part of the body.
Mhm.
It's a presence. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah. And like, I didn't remember this at all. I remembered that it was in Berlin, of course, but I did not remember the shots. They don't go too hard. They probably couldn't, but
Right.
like, it happens enough that you're aware that you see the guards posted along the
Mhm.
wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's an ever
Mm-hmm.
present. That's an omnipresence.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I realized that,
Um.
or that's what it was.
Yeah. Right. It's subtle, but
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that, or it's just done at such a distance.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But
Right.
again,
right.
I think that's partially just a practicality.
Yeah.
Who knows? It's West Berlin, so.
Yeah. I was like,
But I also wanted to say, to your point, like, of the complexity of it. I mean, like, again, I would have never watched this movie if anyone had described it to me, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
And I think modern contemporary audiences would. I'm guessing, I don't know, because these are films I won't watch because they've been described to me, are things like Mother or...
Oh, God. Yeah.
What's your favorite? Antichrist?
No,
Is it
my God.
Antichrist?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which are things that do a similar thing of
Right.
like taking apart a relationship or like, like being sort of like around a woman's sanity unfolding.
Right.
But do it so terribly and monstrously and end up just not saying anything. Like,
Right.
like Mother is just terrible, and really just too much. Like it's something that's like feels like it's written by a man trying to figure out the worst thing that can happen to a woman.
What's the Alex Garland one that just came out recently?
Men.
Men, yes.
Ugh. And then Antichrist is just like, oh, are women born crazy or do they just become that way? And I'm like, oh, nice. It's just
Right.
which
I feel
one?
like that one is
Like,
most likely.
yeah.
The most likely comparison, given what you've told me of it.
Exactly.
Nothing else. But
I mean, I definitely feel, I was like, oh, this makes sense to a lot, like watching this, I was like, oh, this makes sense to a lot of things that I've seen in horror or just like movies that try to have like a similar feel where they
right.
do a lot of things that don't feel necessarily linear, that don't necessarily connect, or that they
right.
do like several things like, they try to show like some kind of like part of what like made this interesting though is that there is no like at first you think that she's cheating,
right,
and then you think that she's going crazy, and then you see that like whatever the fuck is going on, but it's
I'm glad you said it that way, because then she gets a bunch of monologues towards the end.
yeah.
I just say it that way because she does not get that prior to that.
Right.
And then you get quite a few right in pretty quick succession, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
some of them are barely intelligible, if at all. But like, she's got the whole thing. It's about sort of dualities.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, there must be a third way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of,
mm-hmm.
it's not Mark and it's not Heinrich.
Yeah.
It's a third way.
Yeah. And right. And it's like, it's super interesting, because something that I appreciated about it, and I think it's because it's not written by an American, or for an American audience, it's not trying to, there's a lot of ways that like, I'm not saying like no one else has like toxic masculinity or, toxic monogamy or anything like that, like obviously, but the same constraints of a relationship aren't necessarily present as they are here, or the necessary, the necessity for relationship constraints aren't the same.
Right.
I'm not saying they don't exist, but they're not the same.
Right.
But like, in the beginning, she's trying to get out of the relationship.
Right.
She keeps trying to get out, and he won't let her. He's like, no. And then he just keeps coming back, and it's like, it's so, I felt like, oh, this is so relatable in the sense of like, it made you not hate her.
Right.
Because she kept being like, I don't want this. This is not working for me. You can call me the bad guy. I can be the villain. That is fine. I don't want this. And but like his responses, I don't know. And maybe this is just how I perceived it, but like his responses are like, fine, then I don't want anything to do with my own son. And she's just like, you can't have that reaction. Like that's not an appropriate reaction. And he's just like, why not? Like, you want to, like, break apart the family. Why do I need to see my son after that? And she's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And then he has such an explosive reaction. And he's so angry. And he keeps, like, coming after her. And, he's doing so much. But, like, I feel like it's interesting that she's not really, even though she's, like, literally, like, doing all this shit, like, killing people and fucking, having sex with a thing, she's still not villainized from either Mark or Heinrich. And like when Heinrich finds that she's killed people, he's like, what can we do to help her?
Yeah.
And I
really
think
like
that's, I know. I think that's so, I really appreciated that because I'm like, literally this woman is like, I think it's something that I find fascinating. Like, this is something that I appreciated about, like, The Sinner, like, the first season of The Sinner,
Mm-hmm.
is, like, the whole thing is, like, you're looking at this person. She, if you've never seen The Sinner, like, basically, like, she snaps and just, like, stabs someone to death. And she doesn't, like, they're like, why did you do that? And she's like, I don't know. And, like, they discover that, like, a certain song played, and that was the trigger, and she, like, if every time she hears it, she freaks the fuck out. And then after that, like, and it's like through investigating, they find out that it's like she went through, like, a horrific like traumatic event, and she's just, and someone, like, basically, like, drugged her to the point that she forgot it. And then she spent her life just thinking she was just being treated like she was a crazy person. She was a crazy woman. And then in the end, it was just severe trauma. It was just, and I was like, something that I really appreciated that about it was that it was like, yeah, this is so interesting that, like, with women, or people who are perceived women and AFAB people, like, there is a perception that, like, anything that they do is irrational. Any behavior that they have is irrational and flighty, and they can't be trusted. And the thing that I appreciated about The Sinner was that it showed, like, here's what happens when you dismiss someone being forgetful, or someone not, like, all of her behavior that you thought was one thing, in the end, you're like, oh, she literally was just severely traumatized her entire life, and then had, like, a breaking point, and then, and it's like, it's this whole thing. I mean, if you haven't seen it, you should. But, like, the thing that I thought of at the end of that, I was like, oh, this is interesting, but what's believable about it is that, like, oh, it's a white woman that gets believed.
Right.
Or, like, that gets, that someone's like, oh, I should investigate why this woman suddenly snapped. If it was not a white woman, they'd be like,
no.
Oh, yeah, who cares?
They would have just been killed in the first place.
Right, exactly.
Okay, we're going to take a break real quick. Be right back.
I feel like, especially in America, especially, like, I mean, maybe in the UK too, but, like, women kind of aren't allowed to need sex, or to be sexual, or to need a relationship where they're getting their needs met. Like, they're kind of like,
right,
as long as someone's paying your way, you should be happy.
Yeah,
Right. And so, like, it was super interesting to watch it and see how she's just like, I'm not happy, and I don't want to be here, and I don't know how to, like, I don't know. It was just interesting that, like, part of her issue with it was that, like, she was bored. And I really enjoyed that was, she was literally like, I'm just tired of, like, I'm bored of it after a while. And I'm like, no, that's legit. Like,
yeah.
A mom.
Well, and so a few things.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I don't. Gosh, sorry. I had this the first time I watched it, and I still don't quite have an answer why I have patience for, on the surface it looks like something I would not give time to in a movie.
Correct.
Like, there's a scene where he hits her repeatedly until her face is bloody. And, lots of, I wouldn't necessarily say that consent is, I mean, there's definitely times when consent seems impossible on her end. Oh, where was I going? Shit. I don't know. Shit that I I don't have time for it. You know, like I'm not. I don't
yeah.
I mean, part of it is that it's 40 years old, or whatever.
Right.
But
Also, I think, I mean, not to interrupt your thought, but I think some of what makes it easier to
go on.
I'm just saying some of what makes it easier to stomach is that it feels like they're being controlled by something. Like
Yes.
it doesn't feel like it's totally they're behaving like they would if this thing wasn't in their presence or whatever. That's how it felt for me.
Well,
That's
definitely
why.
with her behavior.
I feel like, but he started
Yeah.
behaving weird before she did. Like he started doing like all the weird possession stuff before. Like he was going through the hallway and like in the beginning, and he's like, how long have I been here and shit like that. So like he like all like I feel like him, her, and Heinrich all have those like weird like episodes.
Yeah, when Heinrich shows up at his place.
Yeah. He's like
He's
anyway.
like, not it. Yeah, and like this is both a compliment and not.
Yeah.
Like
Ow.
like that whole section before I said, and now get ready for the movie to turn bonkers. A lot of their scenes together, him and Mark and Anna,
Yeah.
reminding me of Godard, and I know it's like he recently passed, so I've been thinking, so he's on the brain, but like, he devises a lot of his movies had really interesting ways of men and women who are in relationships, like demonstrating the dichotomy of being in love with someone, but also like, I don't know, wanting to tear their guts out or whatever. I don't know. I don't necessarily relate to it.
Right.
I mean, what is relatable to me about possession is like, getting to some of the really bad, worst places I've gotten to, when a relationship should end.
Right.
And I don't want to let it go, or the other person doesn't.
Yeah.
And patterns of, using the relationship to self-harm.
Yeah.
And then, there's something of the flavor, and this is a compliment to its credit. Like, yeah, definitely. I don't think you're meant to see Sam Neill's character's behavior as rational.
Right.
Even though his behavior gets the
most
lion's share of the time,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
And also,
Like,
he's seen almost like the more rational of the two. Like he's portrayed as almost that way, but like
right. But you can. There's some kind of there's something there for me, and again, this might be because it's not an American film or American produced film.
Yeah.
Where it seems like a caricature of that.
Yeah.
Typical male response of to jealousy and one of the first thing when I first watched it, I'm like, oh, I get it. You think it's going to be about being possessed by a foreign entity, but no, it's about wanting to possess someone else.
That's the same. I had that thought at first. I was like, oh, it's not about like, being possessed. It's about someone possessing you. It's about being in someone else's possession. And then I was like, no, that doesn't make sense. Why would Keith suggest this for our Halloween movies? If no supernatural element happened. Yeah. Like, if this is it, it's just the two of them like fighting the whole time. I'm like, no, Keith would hate this. If that was it.
Right.
There's no way.
And it's on it actually that there's the amount of that there is hard for me.
It's insane. Oh man, I was gonna say something. What you were saying reminded me of something I wanted to say.
You're welcome.
Oh fuck, what was it? What were you talking about? Say some of the things again.
No, I'm just kidding. Jealousy.
Oh
masculine.
yeah, you were saying like the dynamics of the things that they do that like normally you wouldn't give space for.
Yeah.
You seem to have. I feel like in some instances, and I think this is a problem with like film, or can be a problem with film, because like things can be used as like symbols but
Yes.
it gets taken as a literal.
Yes.
It might be hard to show like the violence of a relationship in the sense of like being emotionally volatile, or like, so you show a physical activity, but like you more are just trying to show it. You're not trying to, you don't have as much time, or you don't have the language to use around it. So you use a physical act of violence. But I was also going to say, it's really difficult, I think, to accurately show like gaslighting or like manipulation in movies. And I think a movie that does this, and I think this is probably why women liked it so much, or like non-men.
50 Shades.
No, Midsommar.
Right.
Like that movie, like Danny, the main character Danny, like her partner is like, they do such a good job, like shockingly, not trying to, say that Ari Aster is like great or something, but like it shows her like continually being like emotionally sort of like neglected and manipulated, and so few movies do that, and I think it's like so relatable. And like people like, there's a Midsommar, like I didn't watch that movie and think what a happy ending, which apparently some people did, which is insane to me. I enjoyed it because I was like, this is like, I'm
well, happy in what sense?
Right, yeah, but I'm like, I think
oh, she's smiling.
Yeah, exactly. Is she? Is that what that is? I liked it because it does show like, I mean, I did like that even if this is the end for her, she doesn't put her, like, she saves her own life. She does what she needs to do to save her own life.
Yeah.
And she puts herself, and I was like, good. Like, hell yeah. She doesn't, like, she just lets that man who threw her under the bus and fucked a 15-year-old, she lets him get burned. And I'm like, fuck yeah. This is a good movie. But it also but I think it's so difficult to do that in movies. And I think sometimes movies try to do that. But like, especially if you don't necessarily know what that actually looks like, or you are it's going to come across as just being like, it's going to not necessarily, if you don't know how to show it, if you don't know what it looks like, or if the people in the film, like doing the scenes, don't know that that's what it's supposed to be, or don't know what it looks like it's so hard to get it across as like, violence is happening, but it's emotional violence. It's mental neglect. It's like all of these things, and so like you show someone hitting their partner over and over again, and you see it because I think something about that scene was interesting because
which one?
The scene where he's hitting her over and over again in possession, because
and the way it's shot is
oh yeah, wild. So fucking wild.
The cinematography and editing choices
fucking
really do a lot.
Yeah,
heavy ass lifting.
Yeah. But, like, two things happen in that. First, she's the one that hits him first, which I'm not saying, so it's okay.
Yes.
That's not what I'm saying. She hits him first, and he says, do it again.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. He says, do that again. And she starts laughing at him and then tries to leave, and then he, like, attacks her. Again, I'm not saying it's fine. But he says,
you know what this is for? Lies.
Then you have to add much more.
And she says, then you're going to have to give me a lot more. And I was like, oh, because it's showing that she's like, I think something about that it's showing that like, and this can be like related to trauma or anything, but it's showing you that she's not responding. Like, she's not like saying like, please don't, or she's not defending herself. She's just like, oh, you can't stop there then. You have to keep going. And it's showing you, I think it's showing you like a disconnect from what's,
being
this.
Said.
Yeah.
Well, right. Because it's like, no, it's not.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's about control.
Yeah. And because she's saying like, you're full of shit, basically. But she's not afraid of him. He's hitting her so hard that she's just like spitting blood. And then like, she just doesn't, she's like...
How did you read the scene right after that where he's chasing her into the street and then The truck comes with the flattened cars, and
I don't know if this is correct, but I assumed that she was trying to kill herself. Like, to get away from it. Like, she was literally trying to step in front of a car, and it swerved out of the way. I think they didn't necessarily shoot it. I think they were trying to shoot it really, like in there, and, you know, it was they filmed it in, like, 1980 or whatever, so, like, you know, it wasn't the same level of, you know, realism. And then, you know, the car, like... You know, there's the car accident or whatever. And then it feels like, you know, then the music starts.
Yeah.
And she just walks away.
Tone
and
shift.
I took that to mean that, like, if it hadn't before, it finally, like, took over.
Oh, okay.
Like, that's why the music started. Is that, like, she kind of, like, any agency that she had before, like, either she's lost it or she's, like, in the process of, like, losing it all.
Stop coming!
Ah, just go!
I'm following you!
Don't even try!
Fucking nutso movie. Would you recommend this film?
Yeah, I mean, I would give caveats about... I think the hardest parts for me are... I mean, I would definitely warn people about the physical...
Oh, for sure.
Violence. Yeah. The harder parts for me are how often I read her expressions as disassociative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the part where I'm like, I feel the least comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think...
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that, like, again, like, if you described it, you'd be like, I would never watch this movie because...
For sure. Mm-hmm.
And we haven't even talked about the child and how, like, what a pawn they are in everybody's relationship. But, yeah, I would want someone to feel prepared in that regard.
Right. I mean, I feel like everyone's seen this movie that would enjoy it.
Yeah, I had not heard it until, I first watched it.
Yeah.
Shortly before I first watched it.
It's one of those movies, I think...
I will say that, like, I definitely got more new things from it on this watch, too.
Yeah.
And I feel like I would easily get more from watching it again. So, like...
Right, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not always, of course, right about this, but, like, often... By this point, I feel like I have a decent judgment of, like, if the film is actually trying to say something versus just be weird.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And this time I'm like, oh, there's actually more here than I realized. I mean, like, the first time I'm like, okay, I feel like something's going on, like, it wasn't easy to dismiss as just WTF. And this time I'm like, no, there's definite themes. There's definite
for sure.
text. There's so much talk about, like, oh, you believe in God, which I didn't remember any of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I could give a fuck. But,
like,
like...
I like the line where he says, like, God is still under the porch for him.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's wild. I thought that was really interesting.
For me, God is still under the porch where the dog died. And on the branch of the eucalyptus tree, where I'd lie for hours and watch how the clouds change the color of the grass below.
He tells that story so many goddamn times.
I love it.
But I like how it's not the same every time.
Right, but also I like...
It's like the Joker talking about his scars.
I like that. It's also interesting because I'm like, oh yeah, this is like this is like what normal people trauma looks like. My dog died when I was a kid. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
right.
that's funny. What was that like? That was the worst thing that you experienced? Yeah, this is I was thinking, like there's a couple things that I thought of. I was like, cuz I don't want to sound like this, but I'm going to sound like this anyway. I was like, yeah, why don't movies get made like this anymore? Like, but I wasn't really thinking of it.
Or like, how did this one
Well,
get made?
yes, but I was like, oh, right, because now studios exist.
Well,
And so, like, someone's like, oh, yeah, audiences aren't going to like, there's so much demand for, and I'm not saying movies like this can't be made or they don't get made, but, like, so much of the time, movies that get any sort of financial backing, it's done with sort of a clause of, like, okay, but it can't be too weird, okay, but, you got to make sure that you're not winking at the kid that you feed brains to, like,
right.
what the fuck? We don't want anyone to think you're
the
influenced.
joke I kept doing was like, oh, you couldn't make that shot now. You couldn't have that shot in a movie now.
God, the scene though where she was like accosting the child in the ballet. I was like, what am I supposed to?
Also,
think
I
of
thought
this?
so. I'm like, that's the same actor who comes out at the end when he's like, "Is there a way out?"
No, that's not.
Isn't it?
No, I don't think so.
Isn't it?
I don't think so.
Because that.
I thought for a second, but I was like, no, it's not her. Her nose is different.
Well, there's a credit for woman with clubfoot / somebody else. So
Okay.
that's why I thought that.
Okay.
That's why I thought I was correct. You want to talk about that finale?
Hold on. There was another thing though that I thought of. Like that was one thing that I was thinking of, but another thing was like
Which thing?
movies like that don't get made now because there's
Oh.
too much studio input. Is what I mean. I'm not saying that like.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of release this shit got. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, here's what's interesting.
okay.
In the U.S., I'm sure you read this in the trivia. In the U.S.,
Oh yeah, it was like
It
half
was-
an hour, 45 minutes shorter.
it was 45 minutes was cut from it before it was like distributed in the U.S. Like
Can
it
you
was
imagine?
like, yeah, it was like a completely different film. I can't even imagine what the fuck people watched. And what's fascinating to me about something like that is that like this, I mean, like watching it, it's,
Banned outright in the UK.
oh, yeah. It was just, yeah, I can't. Oh, I was saying like watching it now, like obviously like there's some dramatic themes and it's, it's, I don't want to say it's shocking because I think that's a little much, don't you think? But like it's surprising in a lot of ways. And
So
it's
irreverent.
right. But I'm like, this isn't like the craziest thing I've ever seen. And I feel like The Exorcist might even do a little like that one's, your mother sucks cocks in hell and she's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
fucking herself with a crucifix. Like, I'm like, and this was the fucking.
Well, no, you know how that
Yeah.
traumatized a whole generation of people.
Well, it did. But I'm just saying, like, it's wild for me to think that this was like they were like, oh, we gotta cut a lot out of this movie.
Yeah, well.
But anyway, but I was also thinking how like if I'd seen this movie, this is a movie that if I'd seen it at the wrong time, I would hate it.
Right.
If I had seen and like that was something I was thinking about while we were making this. I'm like, oh right, like this podcast has given me, I think, a different appreciation for films.
Uh-huh.
Not like a new one, but like I like I'll have more patience for like a shitty movie or something that's like a little much for my taste if I know I'm going to be able to talk about it afterwards. If I know that I'm
Oh,
going to be
yeah,
able to say
absolutely.
like, oh,
Yeah.
here's what I felt about it. Here's what I didn't like about it. And that way I'm not like
Why we
actually
created our own platform. So
I
no one will interrupt us except each other.
right. But like, it's that thing where it's like if you like, asking like would you recommend this? It's like I would never say like yes, and that's it. You know, it's like, oh sure, if you like XYZ, this is, you know, oh if you know, no, I wouldn't recommend this or whatever. Like, and honestly, I don't know that I'd recommend Possession ever. Not that I don't think it's a good movie, but it's something where, like you said, like I wouldn't know how to like explain it to someone. And it's like, well, if you have religious trauma, you might not like it. But also, like if you've ever been in an abusive relationship, you might not like it.
Right.
But also, if you have any sort of like issues with your parents and getting a divorce, you might not like it.
Yeah,
Also, if you've ever been a kid who who was abandoned by their parents, you might not like it.
Ever been to Germany? You may not
Right.
like it.
You know. If you've ever seen someone get stabbed, you might not like it. If you've ever had like just like a goo thing that like fucks you in bed, you might not like it. You know, like it's all this stuff where it's like,
That's another thing. I
don't really know how to. I don't know. I wouldn't know how to caveat
exactly.
this. You know,
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, well,
it's a subject of some controversy to
Right.
this day. What genre?
yeah, I know.
Who cares?
But it's also it's like it's like I don't know if you don't get triggered by films and you like older shit, then yeah, watch it.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, if you're right, if you're
if you're
cool,
not woke like me.
if you can watch horror, I imagine this is going to be fun. I mean, you know, again, like you said,
If
like
you like, you know,
there might be this might catch some people who
Right.
other horror wouldn't, but
Right, yeah.
yeah. I think you hinted at this, but like I wanted to, like another thing that stood out for me this watch is like, I mean, it's both like feels like an analogy for abusive relationships, but also just the amount of crazy shit she has to do in order to do something for herself. That's just for herself.
Yeah.
As a woman. Right? Like, I feel like that's one of the themes, messages, whatever, is that, like, she's just trying to have a room to one's own.
Yeah, she's just trying to get a little freak on with whoever she needs to.
Everybody just needs, you know, if she were alive today, I'm sure she would just buy a bad dragon.
Or a couple.
I kept thinking,
three.
too, this time around, I'm like, fuck David Cronenberg.
I know, right? Yeah.
This is the best
Body
Cronenberg
horror, yeah.
film that he never made.
Yeah.
I really...
Yeah.
People love him. I haven't been sold yet.
That's fair. That's fair.
I'm willing to watch probably some more, but we tried... Remember when we tried Videodrome and we're just like...
I mean, you said I have to stop this.
Yeah.
I still plan on finishing it at some
really?
point.
Even though James Wood?
Yeah. But Debbie Harry, so.
James Wood?
James Wood.
I am curious. I kind of want to watch The Brood, which is one of his earlier ones.
Yeah.
Anyway, wait, I had some other notes. Yeah, and there's shit like. Okay, we got to talk about the private investigators.
Oh my god.
Have to.
The gay private investigators.
Right.
Wow.
That didn't need to be in there. That's kind of awesome.
Yeah, totally.
First of all, it's the worst PI agency on the planet.
In the history of PI agencies, yeah. They don't understand the P, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
They're just like, I'm here. I'm here, I'm queer. And I'm investigating you.
You can't see me.
Just
Oh my god.
just big fucking Christ.
His fucking wind up though?
Oh my god.
Yeah, I knew he was gay.
I could tell.
That first detective is Carl During. Who is in what else? He's in A Clockwork Orange. And The Boys from Brazil. Zimmerman is the other guy. Sean Lawton. I feel like he's on the Aeon Flux movie. And Cloud Atlas.
Oh, shit.
Anyway, he felt familiar too. I don't know. Most of these folks are German actors that
Yeah.
are primarily in German movies. But yeah, horrible at tailing her, and then I absolutely
Just full on chasing her down the street.
correct.
And then
when she like looks at him, when they're on the subway,
oh my god.
he's 2 feet away from her. Looking
Also,
at the map.
he's literally chasing her into her apartment building, and then when she goes to her door, he just
keeps
runs
running.
up the stairs.
Like she doesn't fucking know.
And then he gets to the top of this, like he runs one extra flight of stairs, and then he just tippy tappies his toes. So good. Fake out.
But then I absolutely lost my shit bonkers when we first hear him speak, where he is reporting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's to.
Mark. It's to
It
Mark.
is okay.
Because he's the only one that has her address.
No, I know. I couldn't remember if it was Mark or his partner.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Mark is the only one that has the address. That's why his partner goes to him.
Oh,
to
that's
get
right.
the address.
That's right. Fucking out of nowhere, he's got this. He's speaking really rapidly and has what feels like a northeastern accent.
I got your wife's address. It's in Kreuzberg, Sebastianstrasse 87, first floor. She seems to be alone. Do you want me to check this now?
Fucking lost my shit.
Yeah.
I really couldn't handle it.
It was pretty funny. It was chuckle worthy.
And then you got the other shit of like, what the fuck is his job, Mark's job, that he finishes at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Love it. That shot where he's in front of that panel.
I know.
He's sitting in front of the panel of men, and then that tracking shot that goes around twice. Mm-hmm. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
What time did you meet him?
8:30. Where? In the park.
Was he willing?
Yes, verbally.
Did you sense or detect weariness in him?
No, a correct appraisal of the realities.
Is that making him bitter?
No, greedy.
But you felt his power.
You mean, did I feel fear? No, because that would have prevented me answering all your questions.
How many vials did he take with him?
2.
What procedure have you devised for contacting him again?
It's all in my report.
He picks somebody up, and the way... It's clearly got to be a very tight shot because of the physical constraints of the room. But the way he picks somebody up, and then, like... He does a full 360, which wouldn't be necessary because the door's right the other direction.
Yeah.
Oh, but it looks so good. I don't know. Heinrich,
Amazing.
all the way until he is basically forcing himself on Anna.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the first scene with him and Mark is
Amazing.
amazing. And then when he shows up at Mark's and he's out of his mind, high or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Are you stoned with your balls hanging from your Zen brain or whatever? Dangling?
Your yin yang balls hanging from your Zen brain.
Boosh. That is
Girl,
the best.
what? Amazing.
I don't know the guy's name.
It's impossible. It doesn't make sense.
Why not? Because you think you've given him a supreme pleasure? You with your yin-yang balls dangling from your Zen brain? Okay, maybe it does boil down to a sexual contest, in which case I'm sure you win hands down.
Like, so, what? Yeah. This movie's nuts.
It has so much.
Sam Neill is fucking hot, though. Sam Neill's fucking hot.
Duh.
Yeah. That shit is hot.
He kept reminding me, I said this, like...
He reminded me of someone. I mean, I understood the Jeremy Irons thing, but there was someone that he reminded me of, and I was like, "Oh, does he remind me of someone that actually like?"
Fucks.
It's that thing of like, is he reminding me of a real person,
Yeah,
or does he
right.
just look like himself later in life? You know?
Oh, yeah, right.
As opposed to a real person.
Correct. Andrzej Zulawski, writer-director.
Mm-hmm.
He is
This
Polish.
was his first English.
He's apparently only, I thought.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm unaware of any of his other films.
Well, I mean, the first one at least, maybe the only that where people speak English.
Yeah.
This was wild. This movie was fucking wild. Oops, that I never watched it before.
Well, oops for the reason you never watched it.
Yeah.
I feel like, didn't I have one of those early on in our journey together?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, probably.
Anywho.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, man.
This was a lot of fun for a Monday afternoon.
Yeah, we didn't talk about her double, the teacher.
Yeah. What?
Just shows up unannounced.
Well, he's like, you're my
Presumably his teacher.
I like how he's like, you're my wife. And she's like, what? I'm his teacher. And he's like, have you met my wife? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, okay. I was like, what the fuck? And then obviously they fuck.
As far as when Mark goes to see Heinrich's mother at the end.
Jesus Christ.
Towards the end.
And she fucking like offs herself in front of him.
Yes, that was another thing where I'm like, wow. She
Yeah.
takes a handful of pills and she's like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Heinrich's dead.
I have no reason
But
to
the
be
shit where she starts talking about his soul and being separate from his body and
the body
before
is-
that, the reason he goes to her, right, is because, well, first of all, she calls him looking for Heinrich, but after Anna comes back to, it's after Mark kills Heinrich, right? And then he comes home and Anna's there and he's covered in blood and he's just like, mommy, uppies. And then she, takes him in and like undresses him and
because
it
Margles
looks,
or whatever is Margle. She like
Margie.
knifed Margles, so he's like
Markle.
picks her. He picks her up and carries her in, and then he just like lays her down.
That's
and,
right.
That's why he's covered in blood.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because Anna killed her, huh? Presumably.
Because she didn't want her to interfere. I don't know.
Yeah, I could. Oh, okay. So she's stuff I couldn't understand. There's a lot of. Let me just say, there is a melange of accents in this movie, as you may have guessed already. So some of the dialogue is hard to.
Absolutely unintelligible.
I mean, I think that
for me.
adds to it.
A little bit, yeah. I gave up after like the first argument. I was like, "Oh, I'm not okay."
But after they do that, and then presumably fuck again in reconciliation, and she's like, she's trying to take it away from me.
Mm-hmm.
I then thought that was a reference to Heinrich's mother with her talk of Heinrich's soul being separate from his body. And then then Anna leaves and she's like, close the door, because then Bob, their child, is standing there and he comes into the bathroom with them.
I have to go. Please close the door.
Because it's here with you?
Yes!
Oh,
and she's like, yes.
Whoa. I ain't catching any of that.
I'm like, okay, is Heinrich soul the creature?
Huh.
But then also when at near the very end, when Mark is dying on the stairwell to heaven or wherever he's going, and his double shows up.
Mm-hmm. Who has different colored eyes than he does.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's why they look
so
notable.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. They're like dark, right? Mm-hmm. And his Samuels are blue, or Mark's are blue. He says something like,
So hard to live with it. Hey, brother.
Which Heinrich always refers to him as brother. So I'm like, oh, he has Heinrich's soul, but Mark's body.
Oh.
So that's the perfect mate thing. Also, I really liked, a very kind of over the head visual thing is that Anna wears that same blue dress as
Oh
you
my
called
god.
out.
Well,
Only that blue dress, and it goes through.
No, she does change into a different blue dress a couple times, but it's always a blue dress of some kind.
Okay.
Always.
Very dark blue. And then the teacher,
It's
who's
always been white.
unnamed,
Yes.
except for she passes him a note that says it's her name,
Right, yeah.
in white
Yes.
the whole time.
Yes.
So that's a very
Yeah.
kind of blunt visual thing.
Devil in
But
a blue dress.
I loved. Okay, so there's this scene that is one of my favorites because of the. It's over the top, ridiculous, and yet still, for me, there's so much psychological tension of where she's cutting up the meat with the electric.
Oh my god.
The electric carving knife, and then shoving it into the grinder, and she's clearly losing her grip, and you just know that something bad is going to happen, right?
Yeah.
I
just thought she was going to chop off her fingers and put them in
exactly right, and
That's not what happened.
instead something
God.
different happens. It's not actually as bad as
Yeah.
the the language of the setup would lead me to believe,
Yes, correct.
which I liked because it kind of
Right.
undermines your expectations a little bit. But then when the teacher first comes over, she's cleaning all that mess up.
Yeah.
Specifically the meat and the grinder.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. See what you did there, Andrzej.
You're so cute. I said it normal.
Fellas, has this ever happened to you?
Does your boy ever compliment
Okay,
you?
how about the final? Just on her face.
Yeah.
How'd you make that? How'd you set up that shot?
I was like, what?
What went into that? What did you make of it?
Oh, yeah.
Sirens that turn into something else entirely, and
Yeah.
what's going on with the sound design?
I thought it was honestly like, because the the kid just jumping into the tub was so fucking funny to
Yes.
me. Because he's just like,
Don't open.
and she doesn't though. She doesn't open the door, which is
No.
interesting. But I mean, honestly, I mean, I'm not saying that this is actually what was going on, but like I thought, because I thought it was all linked to like Mark's like cohorts or whatever
Oh,
come after him, like
Yeah.
see that he's dead, but they go after. So I was like, oh, is this something somehow connecting back to? Did he bring it with him? Did he like? Did he infect her? Is it something that's like carried on or whatever? And it's the reason why they're so
it
like you
fucking
have
follows.
to right. The reason why they're like coming after them is because they're like we have to contain it. And the reason why they're going after him and they're like we can make all this better for you is because they needed him in order to keep things safe. And like he dies and then
See,
yeah,
so good.
it's wild.
There's some sort of a
Yeah, it seemed apocalyptic to me.
Yeah.
Like opening the door was like significant of like the end happening, but at the same time the end being inevitable anyway. So like opening the door was just a symbol, you know?
I'm just thinking about the kid jumping in the bath. Why was that bath full also?
And he's just like,
In his full jammies.
I know,
Face down.
face down, and he just like, yeah.
Well, that
But
also kind of evokes
But okay,
yeah.
every time he's in the tub, he makes a siren sound, and he practices holding his breath. Yeah.
Oh fuck!
Yeah.
You were right.
And this happens like before any
Very
argument.
early.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the first
Yeah.
time you see the kid, which is like 2 minutes into the film.
Oh shit! Oh, fuck. Shit. Fuck. You're so correct.
I know. I've seen movies. I know how to pay attention.
Well, that makes my final question about this movie even more prescient, which is, what about Bob?
8367819. You hit the right digits, but you call the wrong time. 'Cause I want a vacation. I want a vacation. I want a vacation. Said I want a vacation. 8367819. If you got something to say, well, yeah. 'Cause I want a vacation. I want a vacation. Yeah, I want a vacation. Oh, taking a vacation from the club. Yeah, it's the only way that I can say. It's the only way. What about Bob? Yeah, it's the only way that I can say.
That's so gross. But I get it.